Welcome, my dear viewers. Thank you for being with my channel and watching my videos. I'm telling you a story from my life. Watch this video to the end. You will understand what I'm telling you, so as not to miss my new videos. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your explanations in the comments. Then let's go.
My husband left our family to join a group that doesn't allow relationships, hung out with his friends, and now he's back, thinking we'll welcome him with open arms after several years. My life took an unexpected turn when my husband abandoned our family to join a cult that prohibited relationships. Years later, he came crawling back, anticipating a warm welcome. I, a 29-year-old woman, had already moved on, having been divorced for 3 years. Despite our past, I now had full custody of our 2 sons, aged 4 and 5. 6 years ago, I married Adam, my ex-husband, and we were happily married for 3 years. We had 2 beautiful kids and were planning to buy our own house. However, out of the blue, he dropped the bombshell that he wanted to be single and explore the world. This shattered the illusion of our forever love, built since high school, where he was my first everything, and I was his. Though I suggested opening up our marriage temporarily to keep him from leaving, he was determined to be free from the perceived burden of family life. Despite claiming he loved me, he also loved himself and yearned to explore life independently. Heartbroken, I pleaded for some form of compromise, but he insisted on a divorce, asserting that it was the right way for both of us to live life to the fullest. Our marriage ended abruptly one day when he packed his bags and left, leaving me and our 2 children without a second thought. I questioned him about the kids, and he casually suggested I leave them with someone trustworthy and embark on my own adventure of world exploration and self-discovery. It was a ridiculous and unfair end to our once promising marriage. I was utterly shocked because, in my view, bringing children into the world entails the responsibility to raise them well, protect them, and ensure all their needs are met. As a parent, it seemed inconceivable and irresponsible to abandon your child to travel the world. This realization convinced me that he was completely out of touch with reality at the time. Consequently, I didn't contest the divorce or fight it any longer. The settlement was straightforward since he willingly relinquished everything, and with his affluent parents, alimony and child support weren't major issues. He was granted visitation rights, but he rarely exercised them. When he did, I had to drop the kids off at his parents' place and wait in another room so he could see them without being reminded of our past. Even these visits ceased after the initial couple of months. It was only much later, about 2 months post-divorce, that I learned the true reason behind his abrupt change in behavior. A friend of mine, Rachel, who shared mutual connections with Adam, disclosed the information. Rachel's cousin, part of Adam's influenced friend circle, divulged the unsettling truth. I don't blame Rachel for not telling me earlier, as she wasn't particularly close to her cousin and only discovered the reality post-divorce. Besides, knowing the truth earlier wouldn't have altered the course of the divorce. According to Rachel, her cousin, and his friends, a group of 6 or 7 men embraced a promiscuous, wild, and adventurous lifestyle. They staunchly believed in avoiding committed relationships and had made a pact to remain single. Adam had been introduced to this friend circle by a co-worker who thought he would fit in, despite being married with 2 kids. Rachel's cousin proudly claimed that they had successfully persuaded a married man to abandon his wife and children, convincing him to shed what they perceived as dead weight. In his pursuit of a supposedly better life, he divorced his wife and relinquished custody of his kids to fully embrace the ideology of his newfound group. He proudly boasted about the elevated status of their circle and how they successfully converted someone to their beliefs. This revelation intrigued Rachel, prompting her to inquire about the man who would abandon his family based on his friend's advice, especially a married man with 2 kids. When Rachel's cousin pointed to Adam in a group photo, she immediately connected the dots and reached out to me as soon as she left the family gathering. Eager to share the truth, she asked if I was willing to meet, and I agreed. As she recounted the events, I was beyond furious upon learning the real reason behind my husband's decision to leave. He had chosen to fit into a senseless group and be perceived as brave and adventurous, leaving his wife and children behind for such trivial reasons. In that moment, I felt that I would have preferred if he had simply cheated on me. At least that would have been a more respectable reason to end a marriage and abandon his children. This, however, was utterly unacceptable. Despite the urge to call and unleash my anger on him, I refrained, convinced that he was simply irrational. There was no point in hoping that words or actions would change his mind, and I accepted that reality. Instead, I resolved to make the best of my circumstances, focusing on raising my sons to be better men than their father and dedicating myself to work to ensure they never felt abandoned. I decided to hire a nanny and put in extra effort at the office to prevent work from encroaching on my home life. Once I returned home, every moment was dedicated to my kids. While my parents offered significant help, my in-laws kept their assistance to a minimum, perhaps out of shame for their son's actions. They covered the child support payments, funding Adam's lavish trips to exotic destinations and high-end hotels. I focused on raising my kids to the best of my abilities, resulting in two sweet, obedient, and adorable children who love each other and me. We formed a tight-knit family unit, and I intentionally pushed thoughts of my dissolved marriage out of my mind. Professionally, I dedicated myself and earned double what I used to, thriving for the past 2 years without any significant worries. However, my sense of security was shattered last week when Adam unexpectedly reappeared after nearly 3 years of complete absence. It was a Sunday, and my kids and I were at home. Despite having the means to buy a house, I chose to stay in our current apartment for its convenience. Unfortunately, that decision proved to be a mistake, as Adam knew exactly where to find us. He showed up at our door unannounced, holding a large bouquet of red roses and smiling with tears in his eyes. Despite the apparent emotional display, I couldn't muster any sympathy. Instead, I felt pure hatred. Without waiting for him to speak, I slammed the door shut with such force that I could feel the floorboard shake. Concerned for my kids, I directed them inside, anticipating Adam's attempt to persuade me. The pent-up hatred, hurt, and anger were bubbling within me, and I didn't want my kids witnessing any potential ugly confrontation. True to expectations, as soon as my kids left, Adam began whining about how this wasn't the welcome back he had anticipated. I could discern his struggle to hold back tears, but rather than evoking sympathy, it only fueled my aggravation. He, the one responsible for subjecting me to years of turmoil, had the audacity to cry and play the victim. In an attempt to explain himself, he apologized for all the past wrongs and expressed a desire to reclaim his old life. Surprised, I allowed him to continue, as a part of me sought closure after 3 long years. While I had suppressed thoughts of him, his reappearance reignited unresolved emotions, and in a twisted way, I relished the chance to put him in his place, making it clear that we were better off without him, and nobody had missed him during his absence. He rambled on for a few minutes, detailing the transient enjoyment he had in the past few years. Eventually, he admitted feeling empty without someone to come home to, aside from the vacant hotel rooms. He confessed that he had been grappling with this feeling for the past couple of months and had reluctantly decided to return and apologize, hoping to make amends. The initial thrill of his nomadic lifestyle had waned, and he felt trapped, unable to face the prospect of returning. Now, he yearned for his old life. As he spoke, the urge to open the door and confront him physically intensified. I could no longer tolerate his excuses and pleaded with him to leave us alone. I made it clear that I didn't want to see or talk to him at the moment. Unyielding, Adam persisted in trying to change my mind, standing outside the door and continuing his impassioned plea. Frustrated, I had to bring the kids out for dinner, and I hit the door, sternly asserting that we were no longer his family and he needed to go away. His shock was apparent, and he fell silent. Once the kids had their dinner, I immediately contacted my attorney, providing a detailed account of the encounter for precaution. I then informed my parents about Adam's visit, recounting the conversation and my response. They reassured me that I had acted appropriately given the circumstances and had nothing to worry about. I refrained from informing my in-laws, uncertain about how to broach the subject with them. I figured they would eventually learn from their son. After concluding those calls, I felt a sense of relief and closure. I picked up a call from Rachel, knowing she might have updates about Adam. Given her past revelations, as expected, she inquired if Adam had resurfaced, and upon confirming, she divulged insights from her cousin. Rachel and I shared a close friendship, and she had been instrumental in keeping me informed about Adam's affairs, courtesy of her cousin's intel. After Rachel's cousin learned about me, he vowed to keep us informed about Adam's whereabouts. Despite Adam's questionable choices, I never held any ill will towards Rachel's cousin, even though we weren't exactly friends. He remained a reliable source of information about Adam, especially after Adam blocked me post-divorce. Recently, Rachel's cousin relayed the truth about Adam's return to Rachel, who promptly passed it on to me. Their friend circle maintained a group text, and hours before Adam appeared at my door, he had informed the group of his intentions. The guys initially supported him, but Adam felt betrayed when he realized they had moved on to serious relationships over the years. The other guys, now in their late 20s to early 30s, emphasized that they had outgrown their earlier ideology about avoiding commitments. Some were already in long-term relationships, with one even engaged. Adam's insistence on clinging to their past beliefs left him isolated, as his friends had moved on from the carefree lifestyle they once advocated. A heated argument ensued between Adam and his friends, who had initially congratulated him for his decision to pursue freedom. Now, Adam found himself the only one suffering from his adherence to their outdated ideology. When he initially left me, his friends were supportive, but now they sought to experience the intentional freedom he had embraced. Despite their continued support, Adam wasn't satisfied merely by expressing his desire to return to his former life. He demanded an apology from his friends for supposedly making him abandon his wife and kids, leading to a heated dispute. The other guys rightfully refused to apologize, clarifying that they had shared their beliefs, but never mandated his departure from his family. The group had never imposed an ultimatum. Adam willingly chose to abandon us to fit into their lifestyle. Now, with most of the guys in relationships, he felt compelled to rejoin them. His return wasn't out of duty or the emptiness he claimed. Rather, it was a response to societal pressure to conform. When Rachel informed me of these details, my frustration peaked, considering the guilt I had initially felt for turning him away. I sought reassurance from my parents, feeling remorseful for not knowing these intricacies before his visit. Rachel's cousin, preoccupied with work during the discussions in their group text, hadn't checked his phone promptly. Upon learning the details later, he promptly informed Rachel, who then relayed the information to me after Adam's visit. Now armed with the truth, I resolved not to let him return at any cost, dismissing any lingering guilt. Adam had never felt remorse for the hardships he had put us through, so I saw no reason to shoulder unnecessary guilt. His actions made him a fundamentally flawed person, and I steeled myself for any subsequent attempts he might make to return. However, those attempts never materialized in the following days. After Adam's visit, I didn't hear from him, and when I asked Rachel's cousin for updates, he too was clueless as Adam had blocked everyone from their group following the dispute. Even Rachel's cousin, who had no involvement in the altercation, found himself blocked. This was a significant concern for me because without being in the loop through Rachel's cousin, I had no insight into Adam's plans or actions. 3 days ago, my in-laws called unexpectedly to discuss my recent encounter with Adam. I had firmly asserted that I didn't want him back, but they contested, defending him and emphasizing their continued financial support. The disagreement escalated into a verbal spat, leading to me hanging up on them. I've been reflecting on the situation, struggling to comprehend how I might be in the wrong. While my in-laws did fulfill their financial commitments, Adam still held visitation rights, though he hadn't exercised them lately. I find myself torn between my desire for my kids to have a father and the reluctance to deprive Adam of any rights. Legally, I am uncertain about my position and don't know what steps to take. My primary concern is my children, and I'm grappling with the impact of telling my ex-husband that we are no longer his family after 3 years of abandonment. Update 1. Thank you for the comments and assistance. After careful consideration, I've decided to appeal and seek a change in the custody arrangement, eliminating Adam's visitation rights. It's uncertain if I'll succeed, but it's worth a try. It's been 2 days since this decision. Since I shared my situation here, most of you suggested that I file for termination of Adam's parental rights, and I decided to follow that advice. My parents support this decision, and while paying child support fulfills the legal aspect of the arrangement, I've been the one raising my kids. Adam can't dictate when he wants to be part of our lives. Therefore, I took the step to terminate his parental rights today. Update 2. I officially filed for the termination of Adam's parental rights today, and I deeply regret not doing it sooner. Perhaps I should have taken this step when he stopped visiting the kids after the initial couple of months following his first departure. Nevertheless, better late than never. Initially, some people had reservations about my decision, but I retract my earlier statement about not depriving my kids of a father. They never had a consistently present dad, and I can't risk Adam potentially abandoning us again. It's time for him to take a permanent leave from parenting, ensuring my emotions and my kids' well-being are not compromised. Update 3. While I couldn't terminate his rights altogether, the court ruled that Adam can only meet the kids under supervised visits by me. It's a relief that he can no longer push us around. If he demonstrates consistent responsibility, we may consider renegotiating in the future. However, I'm resolute that he won't re-enter my life. After the court hearing, when he attempted to talk to me, I confronted him about his need to fit in with his friends, informing him that he could go marry them. I made it clear that reconciliation was non-negotiable. Walking away with my kids, I left him and his parents in shock, a satisfying moment. I don't know what the future holds, but my primary concern is my children's well-being. If Adam becomes a responsible father, there might be room for reconsideration. However, any attempts at manipulation or harm will be met with consequences. He has caused enough distress, and I won't allow him to put our kids through any further hardship.